I wouldn't be sure if it didn't have some technical issues every week. Or every
Okay.
time it's on.
All right, now everything's fixed. Okay. Also, Tommy Carrera, thank you so much for the follow. Anyway, let's try this again. From the top. Hello, I'm Riker, aka Karama. Join me is the ever Scottish co-host Dex, and you're watching one of the top Eve talk shows to air every other Sunday around 2100 Eve time. It's time for Between Two Keepstars. This week we're joined by actually more guests than we ever have in past shows. So I'll just go ahead and let them introduce themselves. Whoever wants to start.
Hi, I'm Rain.
Hi, Rain.
Hi, I'm Phantomite, a CSM candidate for this year who stands for low sec and overall PvP.
And hello, I'm Katia, Explorer, Signal Cartel CEO, and I'm not running for CSM.
Why not?
No, why not?
I still want to continue to enjoy the game. That's why. I still want to continue to enjoy the game. That's why. I still want to continue to enjoy the game. That's why.
Well, you all know who I am, so unfortunately for you, you all know who I am, so.
Let's say you're a CapF member, and that's pretty much all I know, Dex. You're a CapF member, and that's pretty much all I know, Dex.
Bombers Bar FC many moons ago,
You were Bombers?
many moons ago. What? I've told you this like 3 times, right? Is this your poor audio again? I've told you this like 3 times.
I don't remember shit.
Is your poor audio again? I've told you this like 3 times.
Do you have the stream muted?
Shit.
Is your poor audio again? I've told you this like 3 times.
Do you have the stream
No, I don't even have the stream up now.
But
But yeah, very long, many moons ago, used to be Bombers Bar FC. But yeah, very long, many moons don't like me because I know Omega as well. So that's fun as well. I know Omega, but yeah, that's about it. Really, I don't really. That's fun as well. And I'm also a streamer as well. That's about it. Really, I don't really. And Rain comes to my stream but never says anything.
Yeah, I like to lurk streams.
Never says anything. You're a lurker.
Yeah, I like to lurk streams.
So yeah, that's me. So yeah. That's now you know a little bit more about me, Riker. So yeah, that's now you know a little bit more about me, Riker.
All right, cool. So the show was going to be about sort of like what's going on in Podfin, but we don't really have anyone here currently that is knows a bit about Podfin. So I guess we'll just start off with I guess Strybog. What do you guys think about them? Because I keep hearing that they're a Goon Alt Alliance, but every single person I've talked to said no.
If you have echo in the stream,
Every single person I've talked to said no.
if you have echo in the stream, the computer you're streaming from, is the stream up there? The computer you're streaming from, feedbacking or something like that? Is the stream up there?
Let's say I'm not hearing anything.
The stream will typically be a few seconds behind, so it would cause something worse than an echo. In theory, this could be something else that you're doing with your audio on the computer or with your streaming software. Something else that you're doing with your audio on the computer or with your streaming software. Something else that you're doing with your audio on the computer or with your streaming software.
Well, that Riker sort of is technical issues. But yeah, I don't. I literally know nothing about Poxon right now. But what is this Stryborg? Once explain. I need to understand because Riker mentioned it to me the other day, and I have no idea.
Strybog is the largest single group in Pochfin, but they also have a bunch of friends who are in the alliance in everything but name, essentially as well. They're a large group, and they rally around Moldavius as their CSM candidate.
So that's where Moldavius comes in, yeah. Well, that was the whole point. And I'm coming along was to enlighten us all. Maybe your range, you know, much else.
These guys spent a huge amount of time and effort going through the invasion and siding with the Triglavians, not knowing what their reward would be for taking that side, and they got the types of access in Pochfin that made a obscene amount of money.
Okay, so real quick, I think I fixed it. That was some pretty bad echoing, so I think we're going to quickly restart the stream, guys, get everything back, and I guess take it from the top again, because we need to redo some stuff.
Cool.
So, yeah, guys, hang on tight. We can get the issue fixed, and
They're
we'll
saying
be
it's
right back.
good.
Yeah, they're saying it's good.
Yeah, it's... And we're back. All right, everyone, welcome to Between Two Keepstars. Sorry about that. We had a bit of an issue with the echoing. And yeah, welcome back to the best talk show to air every other Sunday at 2100. I'm here with my co-host Dex, along with Phantomite Katia. Is that how you pronounce your name?
Yeah, Katia.
Yep. And Rain. And we're here talking about Pochvin and Strybog.
We need to.
Do you want us to go through some of it again?
I mean, you can. At this point, we've gone so off script that it doesn't really matter at this point.
Wait, there's a script? How come I didn't get to see it beforehand?
No, there's no. It's never a script here.
Yeah. Well, there is always a script, but usually what'll happen is Phantomite will start talking, and it'll be better than the script that I wrote. So I'll just usually let him talk.
I know.
All right. Well, what's our subject then? Because we've answered the question of who are Strybog.
I know. And then we all have these technical issues that always happen.
Okay, so going back on that thing that was said there, that some people say that Strybog is all goon alts, and some people saying it's not. I never ever pick up this kind of information and keep it in my head, because it's impossible to, especially now, given that it is a polarized universe at war in Delve. It is basically all absolutely garbage facts, in inverted commas, from both sides about everything. There's almost always a more boring truth beyond what both sides say about the other around this stuff here. So no, I do not believe that they are goon alts, and I do not believe that there are no goons in there either. So whatever. I personally, I wouldn't even dedicate any brain cells or time to considering either of those options.
Do you have Katia? There was one question I actually wanted to ask you, mate. Obviously, we spoke a long time ago about your. I was fascinated by the whole statue thing and the explanation thing, but obviously, like, we're all involved in this stupid war at some level.
All of
but
us.
Of course, you're not. Yeah, but no one's interested in you, Phantomite. But from an outsider's perspective, and I know you don't have much time. I know you've only got like another 20 minutes here, so I wanted to give you a bit of time as well. But obviously, from an outsider's perspective, what's your opinion on the whole thing?
Opinion of the war? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, just in general, because obviously you've observed various different events, like all the capitals getting trapped and so on. And it's been going on since, I don't know, any idea how long it's been going on now, right?
It's almost a year now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a lot of time. It seems like a fucking eternity to me. But obviously you've observed various different events. What do you believe there was a point to it all?
Yeah, it's interesting because we're a neutral corporation, Signal Cartel, and our alliance, Eve Scout. We're neutral to all, and we honor all play styles and everything. So the war to us is really nothing more than just an area to avoid, when we're out exploring and doing the sites and whatnot. So from a player perspective, I'm really fascinated by it because it's definitely just been huge and it's been going on for so long. And I can't even fathom the dedication and effort on both sides that it's taken to keep this thing going like it's been going. It's just absolutely amazing to see such activity in the game.
Obviously there's been big changes in the game, and in terms of people and all that. How has it changed your play style? Because I know, obviously, it's well known. For those of you that don't know, Signal Cartel, what should I say, not allowed to, or to fight, or you just don't have an interest in it? How would you describe it?
Yeah, there's a lot of misconceptions about us. A lot of folks call us, pacifists, and that is far from the truth. Our guidance is we will not fire unless fired upon. We will defend ourselves, but we will not initiate aggression. So there have been a few that have taken on some of our pilots and have lost their ship as a result of it. The thing that we won't do though is we will never pod anyone. We won't go that far with any aggressive activity, but we won't start fights, but we might finish them.
How how you getting on, Rachel?
Every single time we try to do a show, something breaks.
Some sort of disaster. But I know you recently got the old CEO job. How's that going for you?
It's going really
CEO
well.
job.
Yeah, back in March, Thrice Happus was our CEO of Signal Cartel. He had to step away for real life reasons. And I've been XO at that time for about 6 months or so. So I stepped up into that role. I'm actually co-leading with Alder Roanoke. We kind of split up the responsibilities of the position and all. I'm taking more of the public face and kind of the long-term goals of the core, piece taking more of the internal day-to-day operations and stuff like that. So, but it's a new challenge. It's something different for me. I've been enjoying it so far. There's definitely been stressful days here and there, and but it's been good
Uh,
overall.
Good. For those, could you give us a little kind of a little kind of cut a long story short? Obviously, for those of you who don't know, could you tell us a little bit more about why you're relatively well known within the game now? What are your what I'm getting at is the whole statue thing. How did that come about?
Am I well known? I have no clue.
Tell us about the elephant in the room. Come on.
Yes, that's better way to put it.
There you go. Okay. Well, for those who don't know, and I honestly, it's one of those things when you get involuntary fame, you just don't know who all knows and how they know and whatnot. But over the course of 10 years, real time, from 2009 to 2019, I set out and explored every single system in New Eden, both known space and wormhole space. And I did it all without losing a single ship. And CCP recognized and validated that effort, actually got me a Guinness World Record to boot, and a monument in game if you haven't seen it in the Satio system.
Do you have the Guinness certificate yourself?
I do have the Guinness certificate myself. Yes.
Very cool. Very cool.
I know.
So that is my claim to fame.
I did not know that. Is that just a recent? Is that just a recent thing, or did you?
No, it came about. It was about 6 months, I guess, after the achievement. It goes through. They go through checks and balances, and CCP has to certify it, and I have to provide logs and whatnot, and and Guinness does their due diligence and before they'll award a certificate. So, and because of that, I had to release my real name. They want to award a certificate to a fictional name, so my real name is out there and whatnot. But I felt it was worth it for that.
That's super
no.
cool, though. Holy cow!
Yeah.
Congrats.
Did not know that, mate. No. You're welcome to link. I know you run continuous a blog. You're welcome to link it in the chat if you want.
Yeah, sure.
Obviously, the last time we talked, we went in there a much more detail. But I know you, as I said, you don't have a great deal of time here. But have you been up to much else since the last time? I think it was about a year ago. The last time we did that kind of went on.
I was trying to remember when we talked. It may have been towards the end of last year.
Yeah.
Since then, of course, taking over CEO of Signal Cartel is keeping me busy. But if you're into the lore at all, there's a chronicle called The Children of Light. and it's a visual effect. It's a very rare effect that occurs around the perimeter gate in the Ian Orsta system. And recently, I actually managed to catch that full visual effect on video, which is out on my channel. Not only before they updated the visual effects, but I actually caught it again after they updated the visual effects
Nice.
of that particular lore event, if you will. So that's pretty cool, and that's a very rare thing. And the folks that are plugged into that, you know, they seem to really enjoy seeing that footage and all. It's never really been caught on video. There's been a few pictures here and there over the years, but it's very rare.
You're being really humble about it because, like you just said, it's never been caught on film before, and you caught it twice. Like twice within a really short time frame for existing for years.
Yeah.
What did it take to capture it? What did it take to capture it? What did you have to do?
A lot of hours. And I've actually, believe it or not, caught it a third time. I've got a side project going on. I'm not going to share too much details about that. Hopefully by the fall, I'll start releasing some more information. But I picked up a 3D mouse, and EVE Online has the ability to utilize that kind of technology where you can fly through space in the 3-dimension, you know, in the 6 degrees of freedom, if you will, with the camera. And so I particularly went to this gate knowing this effect was there to practice and learn how to use the mouse. And if I caught the footage, I thought, well, this would be great, but I wasn't really expecting to catch it. And I probably spent, I want to say 60 hours on the gate when it appeared, and caught me totally by surprise. Yeah.
Oh no, and you weren't recording by mistake.
No, I had the recording going. I caught it completely from beginning and end. And when it went off, I was actually watching some tutorial videos on something else. And I had it up on my other screen, and it caught the corner of my eye. And I looked over and went, is that it? And I'm like, wait a minute, that's it. And it took every ounce of strength not to just grab the mouse. You know, it's like I could really ease into this and try to get some footage. I think it came out really well. At least I've gotten some pretty positive feedback on it.
Fantastic.
Do you have any theories as to how random it is?
Based on how many times I've caught it so far, it seems to appear, and granted, I'm not watching this 24/7, right? So I don't know. But I'm thinking about once every other week, maybe once a month. And to answer the question in chat, nobody still knows what triggers it. We have no clue what actually triggers it. But the Chronicle does kind of say that, and the devs in Fozzie has confirmed, there is a trigger that either is your ship or something you're carrying, or it's the way you're approaching the gate. There is a trigger that will set it off.
Or at the very least, a unique combination to stop it from happening every hour or something.
Right. Yeah, it's got to be some really rare combination. My speculation is that even if you trigger it, there may only be a percentage chance that it'll go off. So you could be carrying it and not go off, whatever the trigger is, and then that too will make it even more difficult to figure out what it is.
Fantastic. Well, where would we see these details?
Yeah, I'll drop some links in chat here.
See the whole exploration thing that you did. Did you not document a lot of that on your blog?
I did. Part of the reason the Guinness World Record came about was because I had documentation. You know, I had my blog over the course of those years. Granted, I lost the first couple of years of my blog due to corruption, but for the most part, I had my blog. I had over 50,000 plus images that I took along the way. That's in my gallery. You can see those. So yeah, so they consider my blog. They consider I had an Excel spreadsheet where I would check off every system that I visited, and then I would do like an annual audit, go back and make sure that I had everything. And there were times I'd miss systems and I'd have to circle back and go get them. It was very tedious.
But was it not? I'm trying to rack my brain to try and remember. Was it not? Because a lot of questions were asked in terms of, because what was it? It was over a 10-year period. 10 years, wasn't it?
Yeah, from 2000 December 2009 when they started the rebeautifying effort of EVE Online
Hmm.
with the Dominion expansion. That's kind of really what prompted me to do this, inspired me to go out and see the sites. And so my original mission was to take a picture of every planet and every system, which I did do in known space. That's why I've got 50,000 plus. Uh, wormhole space, my time ended up being chewed up by scanning down wormholes and stuff. So I didn't take a picture of every planet in wormhole space, but I did take at least one picture in every wormhole. So
Because I know that I know a lot of questions were asked like, surely that was boring, but I remember you mentioned it was literally like half an hour after coming home from work, you would just progress it further.
yeah, it was what I did to wind down after work. I'd spend maybe an hour, hour and a half, weekdays just winding down doing that. Took my time, was very, very tedious about it. I equate it to being like in the military. It had long periods of, boredom and quiet and nothing going on, and then sheer moments of terror when you land on a gate with someone else and now they're trying to get you, so it had those kinds of moments sprinkled throughout.
Also, again, and it's very vague in my head, but there was, I can't remember the name of the software, but I know that you had trouble whenever you got to the stage of exploring wormholes. I think its name is Allison.
Allison, yes, our AI for Signal Cartel that was
That's
developed by one of our signaleers. His name is a dead parrot. We call him ADP.
yeah.
He developed Allison, and she's really big and helps our search and rescue division when we have people that we need to find that are stranded in wormholes. So she helps them out a lot. She also helps out our Eve Scout Rescue cache. If you've ever seen one of our containers out in wormhole space that contains probes and a probe launcher and stuff, if you get stuck out there, she helps track those for us as well. Um, when I got down to the last 600 wormhole systems, even before that, I had planned a year before this even happened that I knew I was going to eventually need help getting the last wormhole systems because as you find them, it gets exponentially harder to get the ones that
Yeah,
you need, right?
yeah, the ones you're
So
missing.
a year out, I started planning and getting with Minxie, who was our CEO at the time, and saying, "Hey, I'd like to engage the corp to help me find the last wormholes when I get to a certain point." And she was on board with that. Um, we actually had an internal storyline role playing uh, thing that was running. And as part of that, we incorporated searching for select wormholes as part of that storyline. So we actually managed to keep it that it wasn't for me. So we kept it anonymous for me because part of my concern was, getting ganked at this point because now the pressure's on to not lose a ship. And so we managed to successfully run a corp event to get me the last 600 wormholes that I needed anonymously. So
Mhm.
and it wasn't until the very end when I got the last system that we had a huge celebration fleet, and then I revealed what it was all for, and that was pretty cool.
Fantastic. So could you tell us, was it Alison, aka Eve Scout's Guardian Angel? Um, but could you tell us how it all works? Because I know it's an independently kind of developed um, kind of thing. Could you tell us a little bit more about how it all works?
Yeah, best thing to do is we probably should just get Parrot on sometime and talk about Allison because I really don't know her inner workings and how she works. She is really cool. I know Johnny Splunk, if you remember him, he was a big time
Hmm.
Eve streamer and the founder of Eve Scout and Signal Cartel. He would run streams and kind of show her off some. So she actually has a voice where, she'll talk to us. She'll give us alerts as to for traveling in known space, going gate to gate, if there's been any kills in the system and what to watch out for. Like I said, she tracks our rescue caches and helps with search and rescue. So if one of our signaleers has her engaged while they're flying around, she'll keep up with where they're at. And if they enter a system where we have someone that's reported that they're lost and stranded in, she'll alert them that, hey, you've entered a system where we have an active search and rescue. She'll also behind the scenes and alert our search and rescue team. So we've got folks that are dedicated that once a system's found, they rush out there, hopefully with an active chain, and go grab the wormhole, set it in until we can then get the person that needs rescued online and guide them out.
Very cool. Riker, are you still with me?
Yeah, I'm still with you. Yeah, so that's all well and good. So Johnny Splunk, was he the CEO at some point? Because I think I remember seeing that somewhere.
Actually, no. Johnny and Gatekeeper were the founders, but they didn't want to. If you want to tell a little bit of the history, I can. It came about because Johnny and Gatekeeper started the Thera scanning service. When Thera came to the game, they wanted to provide a community service for the wormhole connections to Thera, and then they employed independent scouts. So the scouts that they had that were scanning these connections down and reporting to them to be posted on the website was all voluntary scouts from different corporations all over New Eden. And after a while, these scouts were like, we should really form our own corp. And so Johnny Splunk and Gatekeeper were like, well, that's great, but we don't really want to manage the day-to-day operations of a corp. But they were more than willing to be the foundation of it and support one. So they set out to find a CEO. And coincidentally enough, I was running a series on my blog that I called New Eden Explorers. And I had just done an interview with Minxie because she had returned to the game. And instead of the pirate life that she used to lead, she started exploration. I had caught wind of that. And in the past, we've been in Stay Frosty together. And so I knew her and I reached out to her. I said, would you be willing to do an interview about exploration? So she did one on my blog. Johnny saw that. They approached her about being CEO of Signal Cartel, and she agreed. So that's how we were born.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. I haven't yet. Well, this would be the first time I'm actually hearing of someone wanting to found an organization, but not leading it. So yeah, that's actually pretty interesting.
Yeah, him and Gatekeeper both had a big hand in setting up the structure, writing our credo. When they engaged Minxie, of course, she started help in developing that as well. But yeah, I thought it was interesting too. I think he was more, he had his streaming that he was dedicated to, and as you guys know, that's very time consuming, right? Um, so I think he just didn't feel like he could pay it the proper respect that it would be due for something like that.
Yeah, and I can personally attest to. I ran a small corp in nullsec for a little bit, and it's running a corp is a lot of work. Like it's something that you really have to dedicate and really be
It's a lot
committed
of
to.
work. I absolutely agree.
It's not necessarily like actually playing the game. No, it's like you're doing a lot of administration stuff as well.
Yeah, people have asked me a couple of times since I've taken over, and fortunately, I've got Alder that we're splitting the responsibilities with, and they said, "Well, what are you doing?" I says, "Mostly it's paperwork and personnel issues."
And we all love paperwork, don't we? So
Oh yeah, no paper. Go ahead.
the going back to, you mentioned you do a lot of roleplay, and obviously you've been running your blog for a little bit while. the I know you spend a lot of time role playing. Could you tell us a little bit more about what you've kind of Katia as getting caught on my words in it? I think I've had maybe too much caffeine today or something. We'll start again.
Or not enough.
Obviously, not enough potentially. Obviously, you go down the road of role play. Could you tell us a little bit more about Katia as a
Yeah,
character?
sure. As a player, I've played EVE Online since June of 2003, so I'm an old time bitter vet, right? When I
Sure.
caught wind, and a casual, well, not even a casual player in EVE, I never actually found role playing in EVE. It was difficult to get in character because you're looking at a ship, right? So it was like it never really latched on to me here. But when I heard about the new visual effects that were coming and I was intrigued to go tackle this journey, I thought, well, what's the best way to tell this story? And I figured, well, I could start the blog and do it from a character's perspective. And that's what I did. So I researched the races to see if there was one that was applicable for what I was trying to do. And I found the Akura from the Caldari side of the house, and it described them as being stargazers and wanting to seek out knowledge and universe, and it was something about the way that it phrased uh, the female of the Akura and how they saw the universe. And I forget the exact wording, but it's what caught me to create Katia and have a female character to take on this endeavor. So that's how she was born.
So would you say that the role playing aspect of EVE Online would that be something that you find important to you?
I had in the early days, it was difficult to get engaged with. There's so much lore, in the game, and to get really deep into it and spun up on it, it just takes a lot of research and reading and stuff. And one, I just wasn't really up on it, and the few times I engaged, I kind of got called out for not knowing up, being up on it, and I was like, yeah, okay, that's fine. I'm not, that's I'll just play the game, casually and whatnot. So, like I said, I never really got plugged into the role playing community here in EVE Online, and just kind of did it solo with the blog.
Very cool. I guess Rain, Phantomite, do you guys have anything you wondering or want to say? I feel bad. I feel like I'm being a bad host because you guys haven't said anything.
That's all right. We're listening to the story. It's fascinating.
Yeah, no, I'm actually really, really interested in this because I mean, I knew some of it, but not all of it.
I got to laugh because I was telling my court mates, I'm going to bore these guys to tears, but that may be the only way I'll ever collect tears.
Hey. All right. Well, I'll tell you what. In that case, what's something that you know that you don't want to do in EVE Online?
What is something that I know that I don't want to do in EVE?
Because I know that you're like from the way that you talk about things, that you're open to various different types of things you can do in the game. Is there anything that you specifically know that you don't want to do?
Oh, I've dabbled and tried just about everything in the game except null space. I've never been a line member out in null somewhere.
Why not?
I don't know really. It's a great question because there's, especially during the war here, I thought, I'm going to create an alt and I'm just going to go out there and see what it's like. This could be fun. And I just haven't. I've been, with the CEO stuff and all this and this other side project working on. I just don't have the time. But I have considered it and thought it would be very interesting and intriguing to do that. About the only thing that I probably haven't done is like the high sec ganking kind of role. I have done solo PvP and pirating and Stay Frosty for a while. I've got an industry alt that's in Lucifer's Hammer, which is also in a band apart, Stay Frosty, Rick Javix's Alliance and Corpse. Last year, I think I actually made it into the top 1% of industrialists or something like that. I was pretty shocked by it. But high sec ganking is about the only thing that for one, I just don't understand the allure of it. As a player, I respect the play style. I can see the niche for it, but
I
it's just
think
not
that
one that's appealing to me.
I think that there are two potential reasons, and people either go for one, the other, or both. And obviously, the first one is profit. But a lot of unprofitable stuff gets blown up as well. So, like, what do we reckon? Unless somebody here does do that, as outsiders, what do we reckon the motivation for non-profit suicide ganking is?
So I actually I used to do quite a bit of suicide ganking, and honestly, the allure is one, easy kills, and two, maybe you can get a little bit of salt out of it.
So it's a kill for the sake of a kill.
Like
Yeah.
everyone kill mails in EVE Online, and high sec ganking is just another way to get kill mails.
See, and that explains it a lot for me because the first time I PvP killed someone, I actually gave him a Plex because I felt so bad. So that's probably why you will never see me ganking. I just it doesn't do anything for me.
Sure, but it would tell me if I'm wrong or right here. Is one of the reasons that you personally wanted to and want to play EVE Online because it is dark and dangerous?
Oh, absolutely. I find the universe is very challenging, right? And Single Cartel, of course, we've kind of developed this counter culture of trying to be a light in a dark universe, and I found that extremely appealing. When I first read the credo, I mean, it just sang to me. I was like, yeah, this is exactly what I've been looking for in the game. Um, but yeah, that's the challenge, right? I remember if you ever played EverQuest back in the day, when your character died and all your gear dropped right there. I mean, that's a challenge. Now you got to go back and get it. I kind of saw Eve the same way, right? You go out there and you're facing PvPers who are trying to kill you. That's a
I've
challenge.
heard it described, Eve described as a full loot game.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I think that's awesome.
And it is awesome, right? I think a lot of people outside of it, they only hear about the bad aspects, right? The evil, quote unquote, aspects.
Yeah, I think that there's something to say here is that what thrill is there in the game if there's no real risk?
There's got to be risk. If that's we talk about the shakes and whatnot, and that's where it comes from, right? It's the risk.
Yeah, and losing time just having to go out and do a quest again, that's not the same type of real risk.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So no, the universe is definitely alluring. The game is definitely alluring for those reasons. It is a real challenge. I mean, the very fact, and as Rain said, I hate patting myself on the back. I really do. But it's to pull off what I did with the journey and not lose the ship is I'm still blown away by the fact that I was able to pull that off in this
Yeah.
game. Um, I had plenty of backup ships ready to go. I fully expected to lose ships along the way. So
I think a lot of people shared your opinion on that. They're blown away by how you survived such such a long time. Have you undocked like at all? Because I know you mentioned that she was once you completed that, she was basically permadocked as a result.
pretty much, yeah. The character's retired, other than being the CEO of Signal Cartel. I actually have undocked, but I could probably count on one hand, maybe 3 times now. We actually had a celebration at the monument back in March. I actually ran a event for the corporation, recreating portions of my journey, and we give away prizes. And at the end of it, we had a huge fleet. Took it to the monument and shooting off fireworks and everything. And I actually came out to the monument and went out there with them and celebrated for that.
What was it? What was it like hearing whenever you got told the monument was getting created? What was it like to pay a visit from time to time and just see that there? Must feel amazing.
What was it like when I heard about it?
Yeah, well, when you first heard about it, and I would imagine you've paid a visit from time to time as well.
Yeah, I'm camped out in the system where the monument is. That's where I base out of now. So it's funny during the race. Yeah, someone's mentioning the race there. The event that CCP just had,
Yeah.
where they had people racing around the systems, right? The monument didn't have a beacon so that people could warp directly to it when they entered the system. So there for several days, people were coming into the system and going, "Where's the monument? Where's the monument?" And I was replying in local, going, "It's right this way. Come over here to the Abagawa gate and you can see it and whatnot." So that was pretty funny being my own tour guide there for a while.
I know that at the time it was CCP Falcon was the developer, and they invited you along to tour. What's the name of it again? The CCP space. I forget. Brain, you know this better than I do. What's the name of the little space that we're not allowed in?
The Jove space, the Polaris system.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that came about I finished my journey on a Saturday, and we kind of made it big announcement about it, a press release, and I was on talking stations talking about it on that Sunday. And of course, it's the weekend. We're not going to hear anything from CCP. And my hopes through all of this, the only thing that I really wanted or was hoping for was that CCP would just at least acknowledge it with a check mark. Yeah, you did it. Congratulations. We confirm that you did it. So
Yeah.
that's all I was hoping for, and I wasn't even expecting that, honestly, because CCP, you know how they are. Sometimes they'll latch on to things like that, and sometimes they won't. And I kind of thought, well, if it goes big, it'll just be within the New Eden community, Eve Online community and whatnot. So Monday rolls around, and we're all just holding our breath, kind of waiting. Okay, are they going to say anything? Are they going to confirm it or what? And then I think it was in the afternoon, my time, that Falcon posted on Twitter and tagged me and said, "That's great, but we think you missed one system." And I'll tell you what, I paused right. I paused right there and went, "Oh my God, did I actually miss a system?" Because it's entirely possible, right? Because I had missed some over the years and had to go back. And I thought, "Oh my God, what did I miss?" And I kept reading, and he says, "We think you should come out and visit Polaris." And so I was just
Wow.
like, "Holy cow!" And the next week, yeah, he teleported me out to the Polaris system, and I was greeted by 30 or 40 devs and GMs and whatnot, and fireworks, and they toured me around the system. It was pretty cool.
Is I know you were obviously you take pictures of it. Is that part of your gallery as well?
Yeah, I've got a blog post dedicated to Polaris, so I'll drop that link out there for you. And I talk about that trip, and then I share some of the pictures from there. Caroline Star is definitely bigger in the sky there than anywhere else in New Eden.
Huh. I know that I remember one thing when I talked to you before that they had to take a bit of time to re-edit some of the names of the stations as well.
Yeah, they did. Apparently, they probably, like any development environment, if you're in IT, and I'm a programmer by trade, so I know, but in your test systems and whatnot, you tend to get creative with your names. And apparently, they had done that in Polaris. So Falcon said he had to spend a day going through renaming stuff before I got there.
Can only imagine.
That's it. That's pretty funny. Oh, hey, we've got someone from the Eve community coming. Oh, great. Looks at the system name. Yeah, we should use that.
Yeah, exactly right. So we better change that.
See, now I'm just wondering like what everything was named before you got there.
I know. I'm curious too, right? I gotta wonder.
Yeah, knowing CCP, they'll never share with us, or maybe they will. You never know.
Well, he said they did it for testing, right?
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
probably a bunch of like weird broken code character names or something like that.
I know if you've ever seen when the server's coming back up, and if you ever see it put in VIP mode, that's usually when the devs are logging in and checking things out, and they base out of Polaris. That's where they start from. Trying to find the link now.
So it's cool. So I don't know if anyone asked you this, but out of all the things you do in Eve, what is your number one favorite thing?
Number one favorite thing.
Obviously,
course.
not being CEO.
As a player, I've always loved, and granted, it's probably why I did my journey right. I like exploring. I like seeing things that I've not seen before, and seeing the site. So I typically don't play Eve as a PvE or a PvPer. I generally am one that likes to wander around and see the sites and talk to folks in local and that kind of thing. That's probably my favorite thing to do. Second to that would be industry. I do like the building of things in games. So usually I'll get involved in the crafting and that kind of stuff. So I enjoy that as well. It's a nice leisurely, activity you can do on the side.
Yeah, no, that all sounds pretty cool. So basically, what I'm getting from you is that you're kind of like an ooh space kind of guy.
An ooh space kind of guy. Okay.
I mean, I'm the same way whenever I'm in one of the big battles. Like
I'll see. Yeah, I'd love
like the
to
fact
see.
like the fact that it's 10% tie dye. You know, it does not take away from the fact that I'm just staring at the Titans DD each other.
Yeah, I think that would be an awesome sight to see someday. That I like to get out. I know Razorian. You know, he's a signaler as well, and now CCP Aperture, right? Um, yeah, I'd love to do what he does. Go out to
That's
the big fights and take all the pictures. That's really cool.
yeah, that's right. That was a fantastic story actually. That was kind of similar to a lot of because what was it you done beforehand? Was it just that was just another hobby? For those of you who don't know, well, you tell the story actually, Katia. You're a much better storyteller than I am. How Razorian got the CCP job as well.
Oh, I have no clue how he got the job.
All right. So it was
Yeah,
basically
yeah,
it was
he was Razorian, right? He's a fellow signaleer. He's in Signal Cartel. He built up a reputation as being the photographer of EVE Online, right? I mean, you guys, I'm sure, have seen some of his work. He does fantastic
yeah.
screenshots. He's got a class. He did a class at EVE University. If you can, go watch it because there's a lot of misconceptions about what he does. That he actually does things to the photos and stuff, but it runs scripts on them to make them look better and stuff. But he really doesn't. He does some tweaks here and there, but it's working with the image as it is, right? He's just enhancing perhaps some of the color contracts and things like that. But he's really not altering or changing the image per se. But he built up this great reputation as being a photographer, and with that, he was able to go out to a lot of the big fights. He even got into Andrew Groen's Empires of Eve books with his photos and stuff.
Oh, I just received my copy of the new one today.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
And yeah, so, you know, he built up his reputation. He's done all this work. He's well known. And then, yeah, unknowingly to all of us as signaleers, he applied to CCP and he was hired on. And now he is CCP Aperture. I'm not exactly sure what he
That's
does
a
or
good
what his.
CCP name.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is. Uh, don't know what he does. He hasn't shared any of that with us or what he's working on or anything like that. So I have no clue what he's doing for him. I'm assuming it's something in art or you know just because of his experience and his expertise. But I have no clue because I think he is a developer in real life as well. So he could be doing some developmental work.
I asked him permission to use some of the images on my own stream, so I can certainly I can certainly say that he does amazing work. Some of the images he's managed to produce are like, is this game actually like capable of coming up with something so beautiful? And apparently so. But yeah,
Oh, it's amazing. You got to watch that Eve University stream that he did, and he'll go into some of the stuff he does and how he goes about it. It's really fascinating.
Yeah,
so
no.
anyone
go
on
ahead,
chat, anyone on chat got any questions? Feel free to because I think it's
Yeah,
about time to go for you, mate.
yeah, it's about time for me to run off. But yeah, if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer a few before I take off.
Appreciate you coming along, by the way. I know
Yeah,
that
thanks for having me.
you've been
I
having
do
a good
listen
time.
to this show. I completely forgot, Dex, that you were on it when you approached me about being on the show. I was like, well, what show are you on? You was like, Between Two Keepstars. Like, oh yeah, I'd listen to that.
Nice to know I'm noticed here, Katia. Thank you for that. But no, yeah. As I said, I was like, whenever I originally got you on my own stream, I was a keen kind of follower of your blog. So yeah, very much appreciate you coming along. And I figured, I know, yeah, I figured you might enjoy kind of a little story. I'm pretty sure you've repeated yourself a lot ever since it came about, though. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all right though. I if folks are interested in listening, I'm happy to share. I just hope I'm not boring anybody. But
Oh
if
no,
you
no,
are,
not at all.
if you're boring to tears, you know, please send them my way. I appreciate it.
No, as Rishi was saying, you're certainly a lot of people listening for sure. But
Well,
yeah, if,
I appreciate it, guys. I really do. And it's great being on the show with Rain. I'm a big fan of hers. So
Well, thank you. I'm a big fan of you too.
but as I said, guys, any questions? Feel free to ask before Katia has to go. apparently not.
We answered them all.
Exactly. So listen, man, as I said, I think I speak for all of us, is I've very much enjoyed your storytelling as ever.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, guys. And y'all take care. I will continue to listen to your shows going forward.
Thank you too.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for coming on. Also, check us out on our YouTube channel.
That's where that's actually where I listen. Yeah, most of the time. Yeah, it's hard to catch these things live.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, sorry. I'm going to apologize and say sorry that I haven't uploaded the recent episodes. I got to do that.
Yes, please. All right, guys. Y'all take care.
Take it easy, mate.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. All right. So now I guess I didn't have any topics pre-planned because I was I was counting on talking about Strybog and all that stuff, but that seemed to have fallen through. So you guys have anything on your minds?
Yes.
Yeah, I should have known you would answer that. Yes.
Do you want to know the secret to having something to talk about?
What is the secret?
Is at the point of me saying yes, I didn't have anything that I wanted in particular to bring up. But opportunities are opportunities, and I have a lot of things that I like to talk about on repeat. But I'm trying to think of something I don't normally talk about on repeat. I mean, earlier you were talking about the
Alright.
the inevitable. Oh, there's a war going on in Delve, and I kind of wanted to make a point, which is an opinion, which is that today groups are too large for there to be an effective win condition in a war.
How dare you say such controversy?
Honestly, I agree. But can I make a wholesome comment while we're semi talking about the war?
Go for it.
So, last night it was like super late at night, and I'm on the Trash Talk Tuesday Discord, and like one of the goon guys makes a comment. He says, "Hey, Pappy friends, there's a Sino Vigil tomorrow at 1800." And I'm like, okay, so like I kind of fit up a ship. I've never really fit up my own Sino ship since the Sino changes, so it was a pretty poor fit.
Yeah.
And so then today, 1800, the T5Z to 1DQ gate was clear. I boated in. I joined a fleet that was open to me, and the guy was red because he was Imperium. And I looked at the gate, and there were nothing but reds. They weren't even in my fleet. And I'm like, oh god, like they're gate camping. I'm gonna die. Maybe I'm too early. Maybe I'm too late. No, like the moment I decloak, they start repping me, and I warp to the Keepstar where all of Imperium is staging. So I'm in the Pappy Coalition, obviously in Imperium space, and I'm able to like light a Sino and shoot fireworks at friends, and like some of the Imperium guys kind of bumped me around. One of them brought me more fireworks. Like a couple people were repping me, but like as sad as it is for the situation to be a Sino vigil, right? So one of their friends, their members, I believe his name is Hilda, had passed
Yeah.
away. As sad as that circumstance is, right? Like the loss of human life is always tragic.
Always.
But the fact that we as players in a video game can come together and recognize and pay our respects and sort of have that celebration of life of that member, even though I didn't know him, there were probably many other people who didn't know him, right? The fact that we were able to go there and kind of pay our respects, I think, says a lot for us as players in the game.
Yeah.
I feel like the fleet I was in, everybody in local, like everyone was just like being super respectful. There were maybe like one or two people who, like maybe they didn't know, they didn't check pings, or they didn't understand what was going on, or there may have been like maybe, somebody an asshole who was actually being malicious, but like 99% of the people are being respectful. And while like, yeah, this war has gone on forever, Eve has its issues. I'm just as a player, it like brings me joy to see that behind behind all of our personas in game, we are still humans and we can still have that respect and dignity for each other when someone is lost.
100%, man. I couldn't agree with more with you. Right? The amount of times that has happened, like originally you would have thought obviously it's just a one-off, but in so many different occasions you've seen such similar behaviour and a similar kind of coming together, as you said.
Yeah, and it's really tragic to say like this isn't the first time during this war that this has happened. There have been other lives who have been lost, and it sucks saying that, but at the same time,
Mhm.
it's bittersweet to say, okay, well, at least, people can put aside the differences in the war and come together, to pay our respects.
Well, this war has also gone on for going on a year now, so this is by far the longest Eve war that's been actively fought, which is crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know that is necessarily going to be healthy for the game. I mean, nullsec is in the before sort of 5 years ago, when all this started to change. Nullsec was many more groups in a more constant state of war in various locations. But my fear is that on this scale, and after so long of people building up assets, is that if one group loses, 4 years of progress lost is too much to want to continue playing for a lot of people. Whereas previously it might have been a year of build up that you would lose in an invasion, perhaps. I mean, that's aside from the fact that there might not be a clear win or lose condition available here because of the sheer number of people and the fact that we don't have processes from 10 years in the future.
Also, welcome, Gerg has become available from Capeth. Some of you may know him from. I know you're a regular visitor to Trash Talk Tuesday. Welcome.
Good afternoon.
How you doing, mate?
All right.
Glad to have you along. Did any of you go to the? I was working yesterday. But did any of you go to the MPSI event? It was last night, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was so much fun.
How did it go? What exactly transpired? Because I was wanting to go along to it because obviously formerly Bombers Bar, so it would be ideal. But was it any good?
So I was watching the CCP stream, and I was watching it yesterday, and I saw them on a gate, and I saw Dreads, and right next to the Dread ticker was BBC. So my guess is that they went into low sec, and snuff dropped on them, and then more people showed off.
I mean, it was Tama.
Yeah.
Is that
So-
what that Titan was? All right, makes sense then.
So, I mean, Tama is literally 3 systems away from Snuff's home.
It's kind of inevitability, really,
So,
isn't it?
yeah.
I mean,
so,
it
who
was-
won? I haven't seen a battle report.
So I don't really know who won because I looked at a battle report and normally the first thing I do when I look at a battle report is I check if the sides are right. But it was like at least 50 different corps alliances on each side, and I'm like, this is a disaster. So I just ignored the battle report and I just found my name. But so the whole event was because of Ganked 500. So in ye olden times, I think 10 years ago or something like that, when it was either Red versus Blue or Spectre. I think it was Red versus Blue started. They started the trend of running ganked fleets. Like once a month, they do this big NPSI fleet where they all go around and just shoot, anything not purple. And so that tradition has carried through Red versus Blue. Then Spectre Fleet adopted it. So Spectre Fleet is its own NPSI group. And then I think for a while, I think Red versus Blue came back and they readopted it. But it was just like this big event. So like it had been the 10-year anniversary of the gang of sort of the NPSI community as well as the ganked fleets. And so this was Ganked 500. So they brought in so they
Shout out to the Scrap Heap Challenge gank nights that used to go on back in the day as well.
Yeah, that was definitely part of it. I've heard that, though I wasn't there for it. But yeah, so any group that has done NPSI, so you think like Bombers Bar or Redemption Road, which is run by Grey Gal, like all of these like groups just sort of came together and were like, hey, let's run our fleet and let's do this. So of course, they make the tradition of like, well, let's start in Jeddah because it's the easiest place for folks to buy ships. And where's the nearest place to PvP from Jeddah? Tama. So they all went there, and sure enough, this was advertised. So Snuff shows up. I know a lot of the like we were talking about the war, a lot of the folks partaking in the war showed up, and it was funny because like I had messaged my CEO and I'm like, hey, I'm doing this NPSI group. Can I just shoot blues? They're like, try not to shoot anyone in our alliance, but if you shoot anyone else, we don't care. So I didn't shoot like my own alliance mates, but I just like free fired on everyone. It was hilarious to watch. Like yeah, it was max chaos. So like there were at least 5 or 6 different fleets at the start, and then Snuff was like, "Yo, let's get this started." So they started dropping like dreads and like faxes. So everyone just like conversion was like, yeah, fuck Snuff, let's shoot Snuff, right? Because you can't really turn down shooting capitals.
Yeah.
And then it escalated, like CCP brought Titans, and Snuff escalated Titans, and it just got mass chaos.
Nice.
Sounds like
CCP
everyone.
brought Titan.
They brought one Titan. It was a
Yeah, it was
Leviathan
Levy, yeah. But CCP
Alpha.
Alpha, yes.
Was that his personal Titan, or did he use his CCP magic to get the Titan?
It would be a spawned one.
Oh yeah, probably a spawned one. The FC did make the comment. He's like, CCP are allowed to, like, you know, for these events to spawn their own stuff to participate. And then he's like, sadly, they're not allowed to spawn like officer modules, so the loot's probably not worth it. So it like cracked me up.
It was very standard stuff fitted to that Leviathan.
Yeah.
Nothing like game changing. So that's the point. Yeah.
But any of the rest of you go, or was Rain the only one there? Because I know, Phantom Mike, you wouldn't have been there because you just talk a lot. I bet you guys were.
Also, I'm not a member of Snuffed Out and haven't been for a couple of years, and I live in Amamaki instead.
Yes, very good.
He also
Yeah.
fixed the multiple clones and stations.
Where it's due, I'm not going to do the same as perhaps some other CSM members might do and claim credit. I was the one who pushed hard for it that made it happen. But the people at CCP, the developers who do the coding, are the ones who actually coded the magic. But yes, it's something people have wanted for a long time, and I'm very happy in this kind of campaigning environment to reveal that I was the one that pushed that.
I believe that was you claiming credit.
Well, I've got to compete against people who will perhaps, not naming any names, but list every change that was made and heavily imply that it was them.
That's embarrassing.
Oh dear. Are you implying that there is an individual that does this?
No, not an individual.
That's just not. This is not a thing. Of course. They would never do that with the Rain.
I wouldn't know. Actually, I do claim things for things I actually do have credit for. Which I know pink skins was something I advocated for as a streamer. Anytime a dev showed up in my chat, I was like, dang, it really sucks, you know, not having any pink skins instead of having these like 20 green ugly ones. So if you so the pink skins I thought was a good one. And then there was an art dev who showed up in my stream during an event, you know, the Rogue Drone event, and the battleships, you know how they have that weird looking skin, it's like a dummy and it has all like the cool effects. I was like, damn, you know what would be really cool if this was a skin. And no joke, like next year they had it as a skin, and I was so excited because it was such a cool skin, and so that's the skin I use for a dummy.
Very nice.
Those are definitely really cool skins. I think I've got them all for all the different battleships.
Yeah, that's all I can really claim credit for is like cosmetic stuff. I'm not really one to be groundbreaking at Tristan or, you know, PvP. Although they do nerf at Tristan a lot, which I assume it's because I streamed in a Tristan all the time and dunked on nerds.
There is there's brown skin. Was it Death Skull skin? Where on the Tristan it's like the skull is right center in the front of the Tristan.
Headhunter, I love that skin.
Headhunter, that's the one. The skull right in the center. It looks so fucking cool.
But CCP has really done like a great job. Like I feel like everyone complains about them, but nobody ever complains about the art team. Like the art team just every time CCP's like, oh fuck, we have a really bad update. They're like, art team, make the coolest fucking shit you can. We have to implement it at the same time.
Yeah, they've been the visuals, like whenever they did the GR update, like the interior update, I was blown away. That is unbelievable.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But Gerg, what do you think? You think we could push for like a Cap F skin? Yeah, how do you think CCP would react to that?
You mean like with the skull, but instead of a skull, there's a unicorn, and instead of being
like
red, it's a pink.
Yeah, because like one of the Bombers Bar, I've been pushing for that a skin just for Bombers Bar. I doubt that's ever going to happen, mind you. Do you think they would get away with that?
Wait,
I mean, you could.
Is that my accent again, Ryan?
was reading Twitch chat, and so I got lost. But no, if Riker knows the answer, you can go.
But say you could ask your local CSM representative for it.
I'm not a member of Bombs Bar, so I don't care. But it was they've put that design in place. It's just curious whether you can like. I'll start again. If you could ask for a skin to represent something like an in-game corporation or an alliance or something like that.
I
You think
assume
that would
that
have a better
these
thing?
art people have a big index of the various NPC corporations and their color themes and their their basic backstories, so that they can sort of
Yeah.
stick a pin in something that's underrepresented that they think has a nice color, that they got an idea for how they can make it into a cool skin. I'm sure that they've got all that, because they come out with consistently cool skins, aside from the glacial drift skins, which are garbo across the entire
Yeah.
range of
I
ships.
like those. So I like
You're
them, but
wrong. I'm sorry.
it's because every ship has it. So no matter what your fleet is, you can always have matching skins, and it's more than just a terrible color. It has like some texture, two different colors in it. That's why I like them. So I get it. They're not like, I definitely would pick biosecurity over some of them,
It
but they're not
looks like
terrible.
texture error. It looks like my graphics RAM.
You need more you need a better graphics card, dude.
Yeah, that's the problem with the glacial drift skin, is that I need a better graphics card so it looks good.
Have a look at a glacial drift on a Loki Phantomite, and then that will change your
A
opinion.
Loki.
On a Loki, specifically a Loki, I think it looks cool as fuck on a Loki.
Okay, I'm opening it now.
Sanctuary skin for the SOE skin.
Okay, well, Dex, you're wrong, because it's exactly the same pattern, and it looks just as bad on the Loki as it does on the. Okay. I think it looks its worst on the Balgorn.
I know, I've never seen that. I'll need to.
The default Balgorn skin, though, is so nice that I would refuse to wear a skin on the Balgorn.
I refuse to wear a skin on the Balgorn because it just doesn't have many skins.
It doesn't. It's a Blood Raider Victory skin, which is quite nice, but removes all of the Blood Raideriness from it.
Yeah.
Blood
In the
Raideriness.
chat, Jupiter's Rock says, "What next for greedy CCP ideas? Pets? We already got those, mate. We've had those for like most of the game. They're called drones."
Dude, I would love a pet. If I could buy something and then like equip it to my ship, and it just has like this little like floaty orb spirit thing following my ship, I would 100% pay like $20 for it.
I'll tell you what CCP has really missed out on here is, when they removed captain's quarters rather than expanding it into a interesting part of the game. I mean, I think there's a bit of a misconception about the riots surrounding it. Nobody was mad at the concept of an environment where your character could walk around. The players were upset at the fact that microtransactions were added to the game at the same time, which included stuff that would cost as much as £80. And at the same time that this much hyped captain's quarters was a addition to the game that did absolutely nothing, that you couldn't do anything in, which didn't go anywhere, which didn't seem to have any plan going forwards for giving it any features whatsoever. But captain's quarters would have been the ideal place to show off your character cosmetic items, and obviously to be able to mingle with other players and just play some poker that they had coded into it or something, and they didn't do it. They did nothing with it.
See if we did that, the whole mingling thing in Captures, then we're going into a whole different, that's like MMORPG, like what was one that was called like Another Life? Then we're
Second
getting into
Life.
that. Second Life, there you go. Then we're getting into that environment, mate. No, I don't think the whole
No, we're not.
thing.
No, we're not.
Why would you
Second Life was a game about players physically constructing the world with effectively no limits. Captain's Quarters could have been a place to walk around, to do, let's go wild here for a moment, to do trade in illegal items that can't be traded on the market, to sit down and play in-game games where you could wager ISK on it in games, so that it was, controlled, and so that the gambling would be taken care of at CCP's end. There are huge opportunities that could have had, but CCP did absolutely none of them. It's like they coded an engine and then decided that they didn't need to build a game on top of the engine for it to be successful.
That's one thing I genuinely didn't know, that like the original coding, like because it's that old, it cannot take advantage. Say for example, how many cores does your computer have right now?
8.
Well, I did not know this. Because the code is that old, it can only take advantage of one of those. I did not know that. It's a bit of trivia about the game.
Yeah, I mean, CCP does genuinely have significant manpower quietly in the background that doesn't really make it to the players' eyes and ears.
Yeah.
They are constantly grabbing portions of the monolith and other old pieces of code, and they are rewriting it to be more maintainable and more useful in the future. And they're just cracking on with that in the background without making a big public fuss about it, and that's great. But
Those guys are the true heroes.
those guys are some of the heroes.
Wait,
There could be some.
Why does the CCP tell us this though? Like, why aren't they saying, "Hey, we understand our
Because
code's
it
garbage,
has-
so we're working on it"?
Because if you tell the public, hey, we've reworked this thing here, it has no visible effect to the players, which is a good thing. But the players now have these hopes and expectations for projects that they can't promise that they will now undertake because X has now become
Oh.
possible.
Oh,
It
I
sets
see what you're
people's
saying.
expectations too high.
Yeah, because if you tell the EVE community like, hey, we're working on the code to make it better, then in a year's time when the code has increased by like 1 or 2%, like they're gonna be why is tie-dye still a thing? Well, tie-dye is still a thing because you went from pushing 5,000 players into one system to 12,000 players into one system.
Yeah, and if we're going to talk about tie-dye at all, then it is 100% not solvable with both the current technology and the way the game is designed to constantly reward people becoming large groups.
Don't start me, Phantomite, honestly.
Let's do it. Start it.
No. We'll be here for fucking hours.
I'm okay with that.
Fine, all right, fine. This upsets me because, like, obviously the moaning and complaining and whinging about tie-dye, this, like, I've like all the words and they're all trying to come out at the same time. What is not being understood here is that tie-dye makes playing the game possible. If tie-dye was not in place, then like what the game is capable of shouldn't really be possible in theory. And that's the part that annoys me. And you work in IT as well. Brian, I know you're an accountant, so but this fucking upsets me is because a lot of people make comments about the IT perspective, and you do get the impression that they don't grasp how this shouldn't be possible in the first place. Does that make sense?
I've made a post on Reddit 2 years ago, which I think explains perfectly to you this mentality. Can I read it out for you?
By all means.
It's a very short one. I posted, hey, CCP server admins, a few suggestions. Hey, CCP, I know you've been having trouble with performance problems on your EVE Online server, and as an armchair technician, I have a few suggestions that might pique your interest. First, have you considered hosting EVE on the iCloud? That way you don't have to run your own computers. It could be better. Next, how about just switching to a Mac or to Linux OS? Then you can't get viruses or be
How dare
hacked.
you?
Why not EVE run on the blockchain? And finally, but most importantly, why not buy one of those super cool new Intel Core i9 processors? It's awesome and might give your servers enough oomph to get those greasy cogs turning again.
That's right, you showed me that.
It's a troll, isn't it?
Maximum troll.
But this is what some of these people are like. They're like, oh, CCP servers suck. Well, actually, in the past, CCP has received Intel Confidential processors ahead of actual launches. That's how cutting edge CCP's physical hardware is. And it's
Yeah.
also, I'd like to point out to anybody that feels like it's a good idea to say, oh, it's just because Eve only runs on one thread. Well, it's not as easy as make it multi-threaded. There is such a thing as the incredible difficulty that there is in any software development of synchronizing actions across multiple threads, which is an incredibly difficult job to do. Now, CCP is doing work to be able to take advantage of more modern hardware, server side and client side. And to be honest, as many things as I have to complain about CCP, I think that CCP is doing an amazing job of keeping up with the available technology on both client and server side from the things that they've shown us publicly as well. Like, for instance, in the works, but without a release date, but with test versions that are running really well. CCP has native has native Mac client that's being worked on that uses the Metal graphics API, which is the path to Eve running natively without any kind of emulation layers to run natively on Apple M1 chips, and that's
Wait.
super cool.
I thought CCP was already made Eve running on Macs. I thought that was.
Yes, it uses I believe something like Wine or something similar as some middleware.
Mine is
Okay,
the
okay.
Linux thing or something like that, isn't it?
Well, it's a piece of software that can be modified and used beyond just Linux.
Ash, thank you for the raid. 55 people.
No.
Welcome, guys. Rain, do you have anything to say about tie-dye bitching? That's what we'll call it now.
I mean, I really don't like tie-dye, but I understand why it's in the game. I wish that they changed low-sec so it was more manageable in low-sec.
I mean, it's already pretty good in low-sec. It's just there's a lot of extra calculations calculating security status and things that start to get up a little bit. But I mean, guys, I'm gonna ask you, and I know the answer to this. So think about what the answer to this is. What's the real solution to tie-dye is making the game unbearable?
Stop blobbing up.
Smaller fights.
There we
Thing
go.
is like, well, like we had a low-sec fight, not even 1,000 people, and it was like, oh, we have to calculate crim timers. Just turn that shit off so we don't have to suffer in 10% tie-dye when we're just all having fun.
Yes, not even 1,000 people.
Like,
I mean, I've been present in systems with 1,000 people fighting in low-sec in the last 6 months, and it worked okay. Didn't even go up to full tie-dye half the fight.
But I mean, the thing, remember, obviously, M2 was a big event and stuff like that, and there was a lot of bitching and moaning about that with the
Do you mean
server.
M2 is an exception.
What? No, well, it was what I'm getting at is there was moaning and whinging about that. But do you think, like, ultimately cramming that amount of players into such a small place, what did you expect was going to happen? You know, there was.
Yeah, I mean, you can't endlessly grow as a group and then complain that technology doesn't function for that many people simultaneously. It's like, yes. I mean, the real complaint here should be CCP. Why are you still incentivizing, not just not disincentivizing, but why are you still incentivizing game design that makes these kind of fights the only way to fight over this kind of thing?
That was a big question, really. It's not something that I can answer.
Well, I mean, you know, quite frankly, that's why I'm here. That's why I am running for CSM. That's why I was here last year, and that's why I want to be here again, to keep on pushing. There we go in chat. Or the code could be written for multi-threading. Yeah,
There we go.
not as easy as just make it multi-threaded. That's not how it works. Making a program run on 2 threads doesn't make it twice as fast.
Yes, Nick, I did notice the raid. Thank you for that, Ash. I hope you're well, buddy. Well done with all the like. What were you on Ash's interview? Were you guys on his whole interview thing? Because what interviewed all of the CSM candidates, yeah.
Yeah, I kind of made what I regard as a mistake, and I went on really early, like into one of the like really early on ones. So quite frankly, if I was gaming the system and being a politician about it, I should have gone quite late so that I was present for an interview during the kind of hottest part of the campaigning. Thank you, Ash. Yes, it does. That is a good point.
Yes, but well done with all the. Thanks for the raid, and well done with all the interviews. I know you've been. There's many others of YouTube videos of all the interviews that were done. But Rain, I feel like we've kind of left you out tonight. You've been,
Oh, it's all good.
incredibly quiet. What's been going on with you these days? Because I know you've been doing a lot of non-Eve streaming. What you've been doing in game these days?
In game, so usually if there's fights in the war stuff during my time zone, I'll usually go partake in those. Those include like the big fights over objectives, but I've also been joining Muck Barovian in his Dominix fleets. He like gives everyone a Dominix, and we jump in somewhere, blap a bunch of things, and then all try and run, and it creates kind of hilarious like encounters, I guess.
Just
So,
trying to cause trouble and try and leave. Fair enough.
yeah, and then I did some solo PvP the other day. I did the Ganked 500 stuff. So I'm just generally chilling.
Because I know you kind of veer from the traditional when it comes to PL, because obviously with your streaming and stuff like that. And I speak for all of us that enjoy your streams as well, because it's just talking shit really, and those are the best kind of streams.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I don't really stream for PL or anything. I don't consider myself like a Pandemic Legion representative or anything along those lines. I mean, I'll recruit for my court, but that's independent of what PL does.
For sure. So, what? How much are you hoping for it to come to an end soon?
It doesn't matter to me as long as there's content, and I'm kind of hoping it comes to like the whole war situation. I kind of hope it is figured out in a way that players do something about it, right? And I think I was talking about this the other day. I don't know if it was on a stream or with a small group, but like the last thing I want is for CCP to like implement a change to something, and because of that, it kind of causes an into a war, or the opposite side where the players just come together and resolve things diplomatically, like it's some backroom shady deal, and then it's like, hey guys, everyone go home, war's over because we made a deal or whatever. Like I don't like either of those situations. I kind of like the whole, one side fights, the other side defends, and eventually one side wins in one way or another.
It has been kind of static the last couple of weeks. I haven't really, like, a lot of the stuff ongoing has been US time zone. I haven't really seen any EU. Why is there any particular reason? Because there was speculation that a lot of FCs are kind of, because it's 1DQ now, they're all a little afraid of the BRs.
No, I think a lot of it is figuring out strategies. I don't know if people have realized this. I know with Pappy invading that they've been trying different strategies and different approaches. And then same with obviously Imperium with their defenses. So it's just figuring out what works, what doesn't. I think I'm trying to remember. There was a reason stuff stalled lately. I know today there's probably no movement because of the vigil, but I don't know for the last week. I wasn't really kind of paying attention as to fleets or not fleets happening. I do know, I think I was on a muck fleet this past week though, so that was a ton of fun to me. But that's kind of independent of like war objectives or non-objectives or anything along those lines.
So what I know from what Villiers said, he's basically said that Pappy is taking it easy. We're right now in a situation where Pappy can pretty much choose the engagements. If Pappy decides, hey, we're going to do something, or we're going to throw down a bunch of Asbels, if Pappy doesn't show up, all right, we lose an Asbel, whoop-de-doo. But if goons don't show up, then, it's a win for Pappy. So we're in a situation with this war now where Pappy can just take it easy and show up when they want to, whereas goons, they have to show up for every single timer. And so I think we're in a position where Pappy is just trying to take it easy and I guess really manage their members' time, like let their members take some time off, let them recharge, and then in the background having smaller Pappy groups go in and cause goons to constantly rage form in an attempt to basically wear out their guys.
A tactic where it is making people put effort into getting no content as a tactic.
Basically, it's I
EVE
guess
Online 2021.
the best way, I guess,
I mean,
is to
that's
try
been
to burn out members.
yeah, and that's been like an insult for the longest time, right? Haha, made you form. Like that's been trash talk since I started playing.
Let's not pretend that most haha made you form is something that people say themselves to protect themselves from being upset at the lack of content.
Well, that's not necessarily like a broad view. Whenever it comes to a smaller group, whenever I was in Blopsic, we did make really large groups kind of form and react, and obviously it gets to the point where like it's a sheer case of too many. That it's a sheer case of numbers, so you have to leave, and that was always an insult. In that instance, it does make sense because you made your form for someone that's intentionally not going to fight you. But on the other hand, yeah, it's a case of avoiding content in this case, and trying to assault one you. One question I did have for you specifically, you did mention Eve Echoes. That's kind of faded away right now. What's going on with that right now?
I'm not really sure. So I joined and played, and I had a ton of fun. I was doing Diplo stuff, leading alliances, shit like that. And then like I kept seeing like all the dev updates, and they were like, "Hey guys, we're implementing bubbles," and we're like, "Are you gonna implement any way to avoid bubbles?" Nope. Good luck. And we're like, "Oh, okay." And like it was update after update after update like that. And some of the like I was a content creator, and I could see kind of behind the scenes with some of the feedback the devs were receiving, and some of it was like hot garbage, and I felt really bad. Like I kept trying to say to them like, "Hey, we need like an established guidelines for this or that, or you need to enforce your NDA because people are clearly leaking," and it just kind of, the mistakes like CCP made kind of with like the early start of the game, with like the T20 incident, all that. It was pretty much like approaching sort of those levels of just like blatant favorism, sort of like kind of misdirection from the devs. The updates were like they were pretty consistent, but some of them were just like hot garbage. Like why would you put bubbles in without a way to get around the bubbles? It was like it made no sense, and so I was just like, okay, maybe like I should just focus on Eve. And I was kind of glad I jumped out there because I think that was when there was something picking up in US time zone. I think that was the PL test fights or PLNC against test. And so I rejoined Eve Online, or focused more on Eve Online because of that, because Echoes was just kind of like not good. I also heard there's been a lot of talk I've heard from Eve Online players talking about like Serenity and this and that. Eve Echoes is unironically two large groups fighting against each other and is closer to Serenity than ever like any other game. And it's like that hasn't even been around for a year. Like what the heck?
Boring.
Yeah.
Can't be other than that.
Yeah, I get the feeling that a lot of the Eve players who try to bring up Serenity don't actually know what Serenity is like.
Yeah, more than likely not.
I think they're only referring to the concept of one single group holding effectively all the space. That's the only part they're referring to, while skipping over the massive differences in gaming culture and approach, and things like that.
I actually watched the Dawn of the Fifth Day video from Rooks and Kings, and it was basically one of the Rooks and Kings guys talking about his time on Serenity and talking about the PIBC and their war with the Guardians, or not the Guardians, but the something Galactic Alliance. And the way they talked about all this stuff was that apparently it brought a lot of like I guess, Chinese nationalism into Eve. Whereas, like, if you were fighting this one group, you quote unquote weren't really Chinese, or you would kill your own Chinese brothers. I don't know, something to the effect of you weren't really Chinese if you did X. It was, for me, it was like, okay, this is a whole nother way of gaming or a whole nother way of thinking, and I thought it was really, really interesting.
Now, one common myth that I keep hearing repeated nonstop is that fraternity came from Serenity when they actually did not. They were an alliance that started on Tranquility with Chinese players mainly playing through VPNs.
Yeah, and from what I know, and this could be wrong, like the leader isn't actually Chinese, from what I've heard.
He's Chinese. He does not live in the People's Republic.
That makes sense.
And from what I've heard, the political situation of that is part of what drives some of the rivalries between Chinese alliances.
Yeah, it's, I don't know. I personally think that whole dynamic is super interesting. Because again, like, it's not something that I'm accustomed to, and so if anyone out there is wondering, definitely go onto the Rooks and Kings YouTube channel and watch. I think it's the Dawn of the Fifth Day. Very, very interesting stuff. And supposedly there was no tie-dye during those big fights, because instead of having like a bunch of stuff going on all around the server, like pretty much everyone on the Serenity server was taking part in those fights, and those were the big fights. So there was almost no tie-dye, supposedly.
That's interesting. I know, like Serenity, somebody pointed out in chat, so both Serenity and Eve Echoes, it's Eve Online assets or IP, but it's run by a different company, so it's not really CCP making decisions for things. So for those before they get mad at CCP, but yeah, it's kind of crazy. I know the culture, I think if you want to call it that, like the culture and mentality on Serenity is dramatically different too. Because I think it was a couple years ago, I had heard of players going from Tranquility to Serenity because you could get ships on there super easily. So like the Alliance tournament ships that we have here, they're like you can buy them on market super cheap on Serenity, and they're dime a dozen
Yeah.
or whatever. And so people would go there to PvP, but they realized like they would have fit like scrams and points and all this stuff. And on Serenity, people were like, that was considered dishonorable. That if you went into PvP, you would stay on grid in PvP. You didn't need a scram or a point, and like other stuff like that. So it was really interesting just seeing or hearing about some of the cultural differences of PvP and from between the two servers.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. One of the things that I also thought was cool. So during that video, apparently the people that were attacking the PIBC and were against the PIBC would call members of PIBC mangoes or PIBC dogs. And apparently, from what the video said, it's in reference to like man goes where the emperor tells him to, or something like that. And so seeing that, and then looking at Army of Mangoes being originally a Serenity Alliance coming over to Tranquility, to me that's like, oh wait, so they're taking an insult that would be hurled at them and they're making it their alliance name, which I think is cool. Again, this is all speculation. If I am wrong, someone please tell me. And yeah, again, this is all based off of a video I saw that may or may not be true.
It's interesting if it is true.
I don't think any of us are going to be able to competently tell the exact truth about this.
I mean, I can't. From what everything I've said so far is based off of a video I watched.
Yeah,
So,
the Chinese community is fairly interesting, but the language barrier is a big barrier for me knowing as much as I would like about it.
one of these days, Dex, we should invite Norris on and have him and ask him to talk about his alliance, because I think that'd be pretty cool to learn.
Yes. So if you're listening, you're invited. Yes.
What do we want to talk about CSM stuff? I feel that having
Yes.
some candidates, we should talk about that stuff.
I suppose.
What I will say is that you should put Riker 514 at the top of your list, and then second you should put Phantomite.
I'll take it. I'll take it.
We need to talk Rain into. What do you think? You think you'd be up for it?
CSM, I could do it, but I would not be as great as a, what would you call it? Great as a candidate as some other folks here. Obviously, Riker and Phantomite could hold their own. You know, there's tons of great people running.
Who's the worst person running?
Say again.
He asked the dramatic
Who's the
question.
worst person running?
Oh, you guys already know I don't like Brisk. I think Brisk is utter garbage. He doesn't really
Why
know
not?
his own. He doesn't really know shit about the game. So if you're like, hey, we're gonna implement this chain, can you speak to it? And he has to go and get comments from the community to relay them. It's like CCP can read that shit already. That's what the community team is for.
You know, I was not expecting you to be that ready for an answer.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
It's quite
I mean,
surprising.
I was kind of asking that question to kind of just make people go, we can't. Well, I don't want to do that.
No.
But
So
no,
I will. No. If
yeah.
I think the
I have
people on
respect
the
for being able to do it. Yeah.
Yeah,
For
I
having
mean,
the wanting to say what you feel.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, there are tons of people who aren't qualified, and I'm fully ready to admit I am not qualified. And I don't think a CSM seat should be taken by somebody who cannot speak to their own on any topic. So even if they're like a very niche candidate, that's okay. It's better than not being able to speak to anything. So when you go into a summit and CCP is like, hey guys, we're implementing something brand new, Triglavian invasion. So me, I'd be like, I have no idea what this is. Cool idea. I'll see how it works, right? And that's probably what some, not just like I can throw Brisk under the bus easily, but there are many candidates like that would be their answer. Like, oh, I don't really know, like announce it and I'll go like read Reddit and tell you guys, okay? Like that's a garbage answer for CCP. And you can be like, oh, I can speak in the minutes and I can encourage them to do the thing. Like, great, but they need feedback. We need people there who can give concise feedback on something that is happening.
Better than that, it needs to be concise feedback that comes to your mind as soon as as a new feature is presented to you. Because in my experience in the last year, features and changes are presented to you when they are almost done. And so you have the width of a hair of time to bring up major problems. So you have to be presented to it, and you have to basically instantly be able to see where the issues are with something.
Yeah.
And to be honest, even then, sometimes it's just like, yeah, well, we'll see how it goes. We'll release it anyway, and that's a whole other story. But something that I feel personally about CSM candidates is I feel that if you are running on a platform of come to me of what will I do for the game, and your answer is I will be a voice to anybody who comes to me, I think that that's an absolute demonstration of not specializing in anything whatsoever in the game to be able to talk with authority on it.
Yeah. And like while I say, like throwing CSM under the bus, we as an EVE community do need somebody who can have these discussions with CCP and bring something to, the rest of the player base. So like whether it's, meeting minutes or, things that have happened or, hey guys, CCP released this announcement. So here's our CSM take on it, blah, blah, blah. Like we do need some communication there because as great as the CSM is, if it's dead silence, no transparency, etc., to the rest of the EVE community, then at the same time, it at least feels worthless, even though it may not be. So having someone who at least can kind of talk to people, whether it's on a stream or a blog or the forums or whatever, is also really nice.
See, Rain, see how you talked just then. That's why you should go for CSM. That's why you should take on the opportunity. It did like from my perception, from what I can see, it would be a case of for the better of the game, and I think you would be a good candidate. So the next time the opportunity arises, I would certainly suggest you go for it.
Oh gosh, no, because you can have like niche or subject matter experts who can also communicate. And somebody says they should have an alpha rep. Alphas are more than welcome to apply for CSM. I'm pretty sure some have before. I don't know if any have made it though.
Your account doesn't have to be one way or the other to be eligible to be a CSM candidate, just to vote.
Yeah.
Well, that's actually kind of interesting. So on my actual CSM post, I actually say like, hey, I also want to be a voice for anyone who comes to me. But at the same time, I have my focus Yeah, but at the
Yeah,
same
but it's
time,
not. It's not just that. That's not your platform. Your platform has some things that you actually want to get sorted. That's the difference.
that's very true.
What's an alpha rep?
Like an alpha account.
Oh, all right, okay. All right, okay. I see.
Yeah, because like when I was writing my CSM post, I was thinking, okay, well, here are the main things I'm going to focus on, and then I added like a couple of filler things that are just like, all right, I'll just say this to cover my bases, because there's going to be that one guy that's going to say, oh, well, I do this. If I ask you about this, would you be willing to talk to me about it? It's like, well, yeah, of course. Like, I'm not going to not talk to someone about something, even if I'm not an expert. Granted, I might not be the person to talk to, but that, neither here nor there. Also, sorry,
I haven't shied away from, for instance, if somebody comes to me and they say, as an example, if they come to me and they say, hey, I only do reactions in high sec, and I have these problems. I will tell them that I am not going to be the best person to talk to about it, since I don't have a background that would help me fully understand the nature of their issue. And I think that being upfront about the fact that I'm quite focused is, quite honestly, I think it's a benefit.
You can't do reactions in ISEC though.
As an example.
I think that just proved Phantomite's point even more.
Yes. I was having a look over some of the campaign statements. Obviously, you all had to make, and I was particularly disappointed in Squishy's. There was like 2 paragraphs, and there was not a full stop to be seen. And as much as
reasonably reflective of how he talks, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's difficult to accept. But obviously, he would be a good candidate in the sense that obviously his ability and his understanding of various different aspects of PvP. But unfortunately, he would have lost a lot of votes because as a result of that. As much as it's a disappointing outcome that like simply reading the campaign does inspire certain votes.
I don't think that was his biggest thing that he could have solved. Let's imagine for a moment that he was allowed. Exactly, because here's the thing: he is a small gang and solo expert. He is incredibly connected with that part of the game that would make him a very suitable expert on those things. But I personally think that he was doing himself a huge disservice by first presenting himself as a meme candidate rather than a combat expert. DTM were talking about Squishy.
Yeah, when Squishy announced his candidacy, I was very strongly expecting that he CCP wouldn't let him run, and I was right.
Because shock that surprised no one, though. Really,
he is probably better at the game than I am, but the way that he comes off does not seem like what CCP wants to have.
I mean, you bring up a good point though, because like that's like so CSM is more than just a bunch of players talking to like a CCP Rise or a CCP Swift, right? Like you as a CSM rep get to go and talk to the CEO of the video game, and not only that, but CCP, like if there are events and CCP lets you have a pass to go, because they will like provide you a free pass and you don't have to buy a ticket or whatever. But if you do that, then they're also like, hey, come speak to these gaming journalists, come speak to these like media like outlets or whatever. So you as a CSM dev have to be able to hold your own in like a board meeting, as well as be able to speak to journalists without completely ruining the reputation of the CSM or CCP.
Yeah.
It is specifically stated in the documentation and then drilled into us at the beginning of the term that we are not expected to represent CCP in a positive light. We are not expected to behave as a PR tool. Side note, even though the existence of the CSM as a completely free, open, democratic thing is free advertising for CCP, and they know it, but we don't have to be positive about them to journalists. And in fact, CCP will even on occasion facilitate contact between journalists and the CSM if any of us are willing, without asking us to portray in any particular direction. Obviously, if a CSM member was caught dressing up as a Nazi and going around being exhibiting massive prejudice against people, then CCP would simply kick them off the CSM. That's how they would deal with the CSM appearing to represent CCP.
At the end of the day, like CSM, it also represents the EVE community, and
that's entirely what it's meant to represent. Yeah,
CCP wants the EVE community to look good, even if sometimes that means that maybe the community doesn't agree with CCP all the time. Because to CCP, like, you know, if they can go and say, hey, look at how awesome this community is, look at these awesome CSM members, that can then pull people in to play the game.
I mean, obviously, under ideal circumstances, the feedback from the CSM would be taken on and the game would be developed differently to the way it is. And then at that point, the game just further advertises itself by the fact that it's a better game. That's in Paradise World.
I have a question from chat. What do you think about null blocks approaching candidates who they believe will not have enough votes?
To achieve what?
Well, that was the question I was given.
I mean, if I was going to put some kind of tinfoil conspiracy hat on, I'd say that the thing that would come to mind is that they're trying to block out spaces away from people that they fear would topple the way that they do things. But I don't know how you could prove that, and I certainly don't have reason to believe that that's actually going on.
Speculation, conspiracy, and all that.
Exactly, it's literally a conspiracy theory.
That's nothing else.
I mean, is that a concern that people are having?
I have no idea. I was just
So I'd like to answer a question in chat. You are right. People wouldn't like. It's not advertising CSM members. It's advertising the community and making the community look good. They want good. They want CSM members to be, good people and have a certain standard to make the community look good. Because if you have a game that has this outward appearance of having a very bad and toxic community, then nobody's going to want to play it.
I mean, the CSM and the way it functions as a democratically elected by the players thing is the main benefit for CCP, from my experience this year, is that I feel that they have far more value from the existence of the CSM as an advert for how cool and complex EVE Online is, rather than from the feedback.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you with that, because again, CSM elections and doing all that stuff, like it's a good chance to put out good PR. But anyway, anything else that was on people's minds? Gerg, what's on your mind?
Not much recently. I can't think of much else, but there is the thing that happened last week with a different talk show that I'd rather not talk about. That's been the main thing on my mind.
Why would you bring it up?
Oh, damn it, Jeff.
Oh,
You're killing me, man. Come on. Let's hear it. We need to hear it, Gav.
I'm just so glad that I'm not affiliated with either side, so that I have to believe an extreme in either direction.
Is this the talking in stations behaviour?
Basically, a thing happened and some stuff was said. That's all we need to say about it.
Right, okay.
Anyway, check out New Eden Post for your #1 drama-free Twitch stream.
Yes.
Exactly. Unless it's Trash Talk Tuesday. Actually, that's
not even
that-
drama. That's trash talk.
Yeah, how did Trash Talk Tuesday's channel become the place with the least drama?
when you've got Between Two Keepstars, who just has a bunch of guests just talking about video games. You've got Lasers and Lace, which is a bunch of people just talking about video games, and then you've got Trash Talk Tuesday, which is just trash talk. So, out of all, I personally think out of all of the channels that stream Eve, like, we're the nicest.
Well, yeah.
Mainly because we don't people puppies.
Shout out to Ash for doing a whole bunch of shows and managing not to implode by doing something stupid.
Yes, there was Ash recently established a show called Eve Universe. Am I right? I haven't had the opportunity to go see it because he's very much US time zone, but he's been doing a show regularly. And I understand you're part of Talking Any Stations now as well. Yeah, Eve Universe show. So there you go, and he sent us a raid as a result.
Yeah, thanks for the raid, by the way. I will say I actually went on. So when I did my interview with Ashrathi, I talked about how one of my favorite things in Eve was those big tie-dye fights, which sent off alarm bells in his mind. I could immediately tell, and I explained it by saying that, like, listen, these fights come once in a blue moon, and the fact that the whole idea of being in this massive space battle with massive titans and all that stuff shooting off, like, the reason why I really like those fights, even though they are tie-dye, is because, like, just think about where you are, right? You're in a massive battle with thousands of players, hundreds of thousands of dollars being destroyed every second. It's just chaos, and I love it. Granted, I wouldn't want to do that every single day, but for me, they happen often enough that, once in a while is good. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, there are a lot of Twitch streams. Usually, all these other Twitch streams / shows though are done on their own channels, so you can't it's kind of rude to make fun of them because they're putting in all the effort by themselves. Like Ash is doing everything that we here do on New Eden Post, but by himself.
Yes.
And I bet he doesn't even have technical problems too. He's a real pro.
I know. Proper pro.
No, but definitely shout out to Ash for all the work he's been putting in. Like, that dude's a freaking monster.
I think we should all club together and get a proper net connection. What do you think?
Listen, I think I've got it figured out now. It hasn't dropped yet, and I'm pretty sure
He's made the string between the cups tighter.
Yes.
You know what, Phantomite? Anything I could have said does not come close to you saying. You see, this is why we have Phantomite on, because I'll have it in my head to say something, and then Phantomite will say something, and it'll 100% be better. And I'm not saying that because Phantomite's a great CSS candidate or a great Eve player. I'm just saying the dude's pretty fucking witty.
Thank you. Although I did say on that was it on Between Two Keepstars when somebody was like, "Hey, what's your favorite drink?" And I said, "I'm a man of the Coca-Cola." That's what my brain made me say.
I'm pretty sure it was.
So it doesn't always work, does it?
I don't know. I thought it was funny.
It wasn't what I was going for.
I mean, if you've heard me talk most of the time on this show, I'll want to say something, and then my face hole will just say something completely different, and instead of going back, I'll just go with it.
Like, hurry the fuck up.
or Jose Carrero.
Honestly, I didn't catch that one because I have no idea. I don't drink it.
Well, it's funny because, like, when Drayden, for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, last Friday I appeared on open comms where I was basically talking about my CSM stuff, and everyone was drinking. They asked what was I drinking, and I said Jose Carrero margarita drink mix. And what was funny was Drayden was correcting me and was like, "You mean Jose Cuervo tequila?" And I was like, "Yeah, I think it is." But after he said tequila, and so everybody thinks I'm drinking tequila, and I'm on there thinking, okay, I'm looking at this. It says margaritas. I'm not drinking tequila. I'm drinking premixed margaritas. But before I decided to go on and actually correct Drayden, I looked at the bottle one more time, and it said, "Oh, it's margaritas mixed with tequila." Oh, okay. So I am drinking tequila technically, because I don't know. Like I don't drink. You can tell. Like I drink drinks solely based on their taste, and strawberry lime margaritas just happen to taste the best.
I had a drink once called a Mad Scientist in Glasgow, and it was a combination of tequila, sambuca, and tequila, sambuca, and Tabasco sauce, something else. Absinthe. So tequila, absinthe, and sambuca topped off with Tabasco sauce. It was a drink. We played a FIFA tournament, and if you lost your game, you drank that. I cannot remember the rest of the night. It was absolutely horrendous.
You're Scottish though. You guys are like made to drink nonstop.
Yes.
I thought that was the Irish.
We do have a reputation to keep up, that's for sure. I'll agree with you on that one. Right? I have some Staropram in here, which is German wheat beer. But does anyone else in chat have any questions at all? We'll not get rain very often, so now's your opportunity, guys.
I want to say that this show has gone completely off the rails, and you know what? I'm okay with it.
Good.
Also, Gerg's back.
Yeah, Gerg had a net connection issue. I know you're familiar with that, Riker.
Yeah, I was about to say, I know that feeling. I know that feeling all too well, which surprisingly, like, Discord hasn't frozen yet. It only did it once today. So that, to me, that's a win.
DTM wants somebody to ask me a hard question.
Come on, DTM, what you made of?
But I maintain
No.
that he's a coward if he doesn't do it himself.
No, I want to do it. So if you had to pick, so current CSM term, right? There's 10 of y'all. If you had to pick any one of them to be the worst CSM out of all of you, who would it be?
Oh, there it is.
I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you.
Can't say yourself.
No, not going to. And this comes from a place of sympathy for a level of misfortune, rather than from any slighting of this person's abilities. And that is
See, now you're being PR. This is
No, let him answer, dude. Let him answer.
Come on.
and that is poor old Maria Taylor, who has two key disadvantages to being able to have the same access that the rest of us do. First of all, Maria speaks very good English, but not to the level that has the same amount of nuance as fluent speakers do. And of course, another thing is a huge time zone difference, meaning that the CSM meetings occur at roughly midnight his time, meaning that he doesn't actually get the opportunity to attend them. Now, in spite of these difficulties, Maria does every single week bring up and follow up problems that the people he represents are having, but it is a significantly lower ability of performance than us in the Western Hemisphere have, and that's just an unfortunate truth about the geography of the world that's causing this. Maria represents a huge number of people, but is unable to have the same amount of effect that us Americans and Europeans have.
Do you think that would still be true had an in-person summit occurred where Maria could travel to participate in the summit?
I think that would have helped a lot for Maria to be able to shine.
All right.
All right,
Yes.
so DTM actually asked a question. He says, "How about this?" And I'm trying to read it. The only capitals that can't easily be fought subcaps are now normal carriers and Hodge Reds. Yet you continue to talk about balancing capitals. Aren't you concerned about overtuning these capitals and super capitals?
Well, if I was going to pick an example, first of all, super carriers, some changes started to occur to them shortly after I became a CSM member, which were already in action. So they were nothing to do with me. And I think that those changes really focused those ships a lot better rather than them being as general. It's the fact that they were so general that was a problem. The fact that they were able to just apply to a vast variety of different target sizes that wasn't very good. I'm still not happy as to the position capitals have, but most of the problems with capitals come from the sheer size of groups in the game. A number of things have been done that focus them. I do still have a problem with the existence of the capital cap booster. I would want to change it so that the capital cap booster, or indeed 3200s, were not a thing in this game anymore, and I would simultaneously roll that in with a rebalance of the capacitor stats of capital ships to make recharge fits a little bit more viable than they are now.
So this is a question I actually have for you, and just people who know the game. But capital newts, like, how effective are they? Because
Not very
I was
effective on
reading-
anything smaller than capitals.
okay, because I was talking to DTM about basically being in a capital and being, I forget it's like a regen. What's it called? A regenning succubus, keeping it down. And
Mhm.
I've never faced one of those in combat, so I was wondering, like, how effective are those at holding down capitals when
Well,
they're
like
under
a-
nuke pressure?
Well, if it was a interceptor or indeed, let's say, a succubus being neutered by a capital newt, then it wouldn't really make a difference to that frigate.
Why is that? Is that because of the long cycle time, or?
It's both. Capital newts also have a decreasing effectiveness depending on the signature of the ship that they're being applied on.
So, like, if you came in with like a Balgorn alt, then and then neuted it out, would that be more effective?
Yeah, I mean, Balgorn will apply its newts perfectly, well, a lot closer to perfectly to the smaller things.
Okay, yeah, that was just something I had.
Yeah, sure.
Another question was that you stated in your campaign an entire revamp of faction warfare to reduce the impact of multi-billion ISK setups that gank T1 small ships out of plexus. Don't you think that the gate sliding changes have allowed you to at least only fight frigates and not large blobs of cruisers? Are you advocating for T2 mod only faction warfare plexes?
I will be brave enough to say yes. Yeah, absolutely. We had a problem in Abyssal tournaments from day one where people with huge amounts of ISK could build ships that were gigantically more powerful through implants, faction and dead space mods, and rolled mods. And this was something that I was a little bit pissed off with, really, because a couple of weeks before release, I explained to CCP that it needed to have limitations, otherwise people with money were going to simply be able to use their money as a way to win fights, compared to using player skill. And they still introduced it without those limitations because it wasn't something that they had considered important before I brought it up. And guess what? The very first grand launch of the tournament system was stained in everybody's minds by the fact that people spending 30 billion ISK on a couple of caracals could absolutely own everything else simply because they had so much money.
Well, and they've done stuff to fix that. Like they've limited what you can do
They
and what you
have,
can bring in.
They have, but on launch, the most important part to set the tone for this, on launch, that wasn't available because they hadn't considered it important ahead of time during development of that feature.
So I have a follow-up question to my original question, kind of unrelated to everything else you've been talking to. So I asked you about the quote worst CSM candidate on CSM 15. So out of the CSM that are currently elected but are running again for re-election, which, like, if you had to pick one of them, like your number one pick besides yourself, who would you pick?
So an existing person who's rerunning, who
Yes.
I want to, if they were my choices, which one would I
know
endorse?
the answer
Yeah,
to
yeah.
this.
I would endorse Gobbins.
There it is. Oh,
I'll tell you
five to
why.
me for being
I'll
right.
tell you right.
Yeah, tell me why, because I'm not a
I didn't
Gobbins fan.
I didn't know what to expect from any of the basically anybody who made it to the CSM. I did not know what to expect, and in my mind, I automatically filed Gobbins as pushing for things that would benefit exclusively his group's playstyle, and I was pleasantly surprised. Gobbins has, on the CSM, proven himself to exclusively view development of EVE Online from a health of the entire game perspective rather than the continued existence of his group's playstyle perspective. And tied in with that at the same time, he has demonstrated an ability to be able to, as mentioned earlier, very, very quickly come up with potential problems when these things are assigned to him. He's also got something over me as well, which is he has seemingly endless amounts of patience when it comes to not becoming a little heated about matters that other members of the CSM, including myself, have failed to always keep down. Gobbins is exclusively calm, collected, and analytical about the things that CCP has presented to us.
Why are you
That's
not
actually that's a really surprising answer.
Yeah.
And thank you for sharing.
That's why I
Why
was
are
surprised as well.
Why are you not a Gobbins fan?
There's a lot of drama that I'm not going to share on air.
Ah, okay.
But that you are going to share vaguely that drama does exist, like a vague Facebook status update.
Yeah, so it's one of those
Yes.
things where I've never talked to the guy, never met him, and he has a very strong opinion to the point where I'm blacklisted from Horde, which I'm guessing is all based on lies and or rumors, which aren't true, and it's just really disappointing.
All right. Okay. Well, we can't be having that.
If you want like an in-game matter, I am personally offended that he does not support tournaments despite being like an AT tournament winner before. I think he was on a team that won. But the fact of the matter is that he says he is not going to push for it for CCP. Now, behind closed doors, I don't know if he actually does or not, but that was what the public answer was.
I can certainly say, even though huge amounts of this game are polarized and will try and file every single person they come across as with them or against them, I don't mind saying that I have only seen exceptional CSM performance from Gobbins.
Well, there you go then.
It's weird. So, what's funny about this whole thing is that Rain, when you said that you weren't a fan of Brisk, I'm actually a fan of him because, again, he's really the only one I feel on CSM currently that actually represents my playstyle of just being a nullsec line member. Because from my point of view, it feels like a lot of the people on CSM are to represent nullsec are alliance leaders, and I think I feel very strongly that playing the game as an alliance leader and playing the game as a line member are two totally different things.
I mean, this is why I think this is just one of like 100 other reasons that I feel like the sheer size of blocks is not just massively detrimental to the variety in EVE Online, but also to the players themselves. When it's massive blocks like this, it is much, much tighter control over who makes it onto the CSM than it would have been when there were even if there were just only 4 groups, never mind sort of if there were 50 groups dotted around nullsec,
Yeah, and I think, so having line member representation is okay, but if
full
like
consolidation, including on the CSM.
yeah, but if your line member perspective is all just like no niche style anything, you're like, yeah, man, I log in and I press F1. I don't really know what goes on in the game. Then like I don't think that's good representation. But I think what sets you apart, Riker, and probably Maldavius even, is the fact that you guys have real world experience within the gaming industry. And I think that goes beyond just like game representation. That goes to speaking to you in like a meeting, or when CCP presents something, you're able to look at it with more of that subject matter expert lens. And I also think, like, you call yourself a line member, but I think you still have more experience than that, because line members don't really run talk shows.
Oh, I'm sure they do, but it's to an audience of themselves.
Maybe.
DTM
Yeah.
thick and fast here. Phantom White, what would you do to break up the blocks and allow smaller groups to exist, assuming the data support it a move in that direction? There is no way to break up the blocks. However, there are ways to allow smaller groups to exist. And allowing smaller groups to exist is, by its very definition, a side effect it has is it makes the blocks smaller and makes more of them. And that is to stop developing the game to put the only competitive opportunities for progression in this game is putting them into systems like Rorquals, which requires that you be part of a large group for access to effective Rorqual mining. There need to be income and progression options that do not require you be part of a very large group to be able to accomplish them.
And there are some of those in the game. Like, let's take a look at
there are hundreds of income options for individuals and small players. It's just none of them are anywhere near beginning to be competitive with those type of options.
Well, you look at abyssals, right? Like those things, if you do the real high level abyssals, you can make bank very, very easily.
How do you fund your corporation's SRP with abyssals?
Well, that's the thing too. So maybe if there was, I guess, some way to sort of like, I don't want to say tax abyssals, but make it to where an alliance can make an income off of abyssals that isn't like solely dependent on players like giving a little bit of their stuff to their alliance. Like, I think that'd be pretty cool.
Well, there is a way to do that, and that would be if Pochvin had been developed differently.
But then wouldn't that just make it to where big groups would develop in Pochvin?
Not necessarily, no. Something that astonishes me about the design of Pochvin is that it had 2 years of abyssal space content before Pochvin existed, and as soon as Pochvin came into existence, it uses absolutely zero abyssal mechanics to move between the systems. If Pochvin required, as an example, that going between systems required that you go through a short maze of abyssal pockets to move between the systems, then that would be a natural road bump to the size of groups that could move around it. And I would also obviously have removed all citadels and stations from Pochvin so that it was space that you ventured into rather than space that you lived in.
So Ashrothi in chat actually just had a thing where he said the answer is a buyback program. That definitely is an option for alliances that want to do buyback of triglavian materials. But one of the things for that is that requires people to run it. I've known people who have run buyback programs, and if you're a small group and you don't have the dedicated people to run the buyback program and make sure it's profitable, it can get pretty difficult. You know, my corp, when I was in Concordia, we had a dude that was literally all he did was buyback, and he burned out after doing it for 6 months because people were constantly sending him contracts. He had to, figure out logistics to get that stuff. And second, like if you're doing faction warfare or doing abyssals in nullsec, there's almost no reason that you wouldn't just do them in high sec, because in high sec, like you can get the same reward and be just as safe, if not safer, because you don't have to worry about the fact that you're in hostile space.
Why did they remove the suspect flag from Abyssals?
I don't know.
Because people weren't doing enough of the high-end ones.
Which honestly, the suspect timer like made it to where, oh, hey, maybe if I did this in nullsec and I had a small group to protect me, I'd be safer.
Exactly, or just in lowsec, or, and this is controversial, and I indeed don't think it should be done. I don't think that you should be able to filament from wormholes, but whatever. Yeah, there are thousands and thousands of solar systems in EVE Online, all of which are available to you to do abyssal content from.
Do I sense saltiness in terms of the filaments?
I help run a buyback with a couple of other people in CapF, and it's much harder work than I was expecting.
And again, like to Ashrati's point, like yes, an alliance level buyback for Triglavian stuff and abyssal stuff is a way to make money off of abyssal sites, 100%. It's just a matter of finding the people to do it. One of the biggest differences with ratting and all that stuff is that you don't need anyone to do that. That's just automatic, which I think is what makes it attractive for a lot of groups, is that you don't need to go through the effort of doing this whole buyback stuff. It just, someone goes, they shoots rats, they make money, and then the corp just automatically takes a percentage. So I do think that if there, and again, this is just me spitballing, but if there was a mechanic to where, like, after a court member, did an abyssal site, if somehow there was a calculation that was done at the end of the site where the corp would get a small little, I guess a small amount of ISK based off of how much loot they collected, like that might be kind of cool, and that might encourage more corps to really look into doing abyssal sites and to getting their members to do abyssal sites. Again, it's just me spitballing. I'm not saying they should do it. It's an idea.
It's personally, it's not enough that it's not enough that there just be a competitive source of income and progression in the game for smaller groups. The types of income that benefit from having huge numbers of people available to save you also need to be reduced at the same time.
Yeah, and I would totally agree with that. The thing with Rourke mining, especially though, is that you can infinitely scale it. Like if I'm like, when I was mining with my Rourke, like again, I spent pretty much 99% of the time that I was mining my Rourke watching Netflix or playing other games. And it was super easy for me to just spin up another Rourke and be like, oh, I'm going to put it in the same belt. Oh, an hour has passed. Well, my rock is still going. Let me check my other Rourke. Oh, hey, that rock is done. I just need to move it. Like, the fact that Rourkes were able to make income, were able to make ISK that easily with so little work, is what drew people to them. And like it or not, like, you need to be active when doing abyssals, right? And people would rather make their money doing stuff inactively and making a ton of money than making the same amount of money but being active about it.
One of you needs to ask me DTM's last and harshest question.
Oh, I got this. If I can scroll up and find it. Phantomite. Your no-holds-bar aggressive style of debate and focus on game changes for the health and continuation of the game must cause some friction with other CSM members and the community members. Do you ever regret your current style of debate? And speaking on EVE?
No, but it is a two-edged sword. On one side, it represents exactly the feelings of huge numbers of players in the game. It comes from an honest place of anger. It is the product of waiting for 4 years for CCP to start developing the game for the health of the game and for the players who play it. And yes, the obvious problems it causes is that people, quite frankly, do not like to. I'll put this two ways. Let's put it the honest way first. People do not like to be. They do not like to engage with somebody who is notably frustrated. They prefer to engage with people who are gentle with the way that they put things. But let's also be real for a moment here. Years of gentle, non-aggressive behavior has caused the game to be developed exactly the way CCP presents it to the CSM, rather than developed in a way that is actually good. Sometimes, it's just a case of it's time somebody told the truth rather than agreed with everything or was gentle about everything after mistakes were continuously being made.
Yeah, and I think that's a good place to end it. We've been going for about 2 hours and 15 minutes now. Yeah, if you guys enjoyed this show, maybe we'll have Phantomite. At this point, I'm just inclined to say that Phantomite's pretty much a regular guest.
Yes.
I mean, it's
DTM. You'll have to DM me any extra bullying, and I'll parry it there.
Post now, Phantomite.
Hey.
so. And the last thing I'll say is basically those two things that Asherothi said in chat, I 100% agree with. And that's pretty much it. So I guess we'll go final thoughts.
Vote for me, because I'm not happy with the game the way it is, and I know that huge amounts of you aren't either.
Get Captain Squatters back as well.
I'll just say vote. I know there's a lot of good candidates out there. I know I kind of threw some of them under the bus on the show, but if you genuinely think a candidate represents you or your playstyle or whatever, feel free to vote them in. Make sure you fill up all 10 spots on your ballot, otherwise your vote could be wasted. So
And,
that's my encouraging thoughts, is just go vote.
Let's all make an active effort to get Rain to go for the next CSM campaign. Yeah, it's going to do it. I'll talk you into it eventually.
So I guess my final thoughts are vote Riker 5